All right. Why don't I try using a microphone? This is just a quick little live stream. I don't know how long I'll go for. Maybe a half an hour or so. No notice, no notification. I thought I would just post a video, and then you guys can watch this later because I got other things to do right now. But I thought, you know what? Let's do a little bit of a recap over some of the things that I've talked about over the past couple of years. And then I'll let you guys do the due diligence and the proper research and all this kind of stuff. So I decided to do a quick little live stream, just to no announcement. I didn't bother making a thumbnail just yet. I probably will after. But I wanted to talk a little bit about 1/3 of the ships being destroyed in the book of Revelation. And yeah, I just decided to go live just right out of the gate. No notification, no notice for anyone. I just hit record. So take it for what it is. But I thought it was important to make a video like this because 2 years ago, one of my first videos that I did was on President Zelensky. My very first video out of the gate. I didn't know what I was talking about. I just started reading the Bible, and I thought, you know what? It's kind of interesting what President Zelensky's up to. Just feels kind of weird. He's making speeches all over the world. And then I started thinking, is this guy the Antichrist? Could he be the Antichrist? And so I just made a video. I said, you know what? This guy kind of looks like he could be the Antichrist. Whatever. I just let it go. There it is. Then a little while later, I watched another speech by President Zelensky saying that he wanted to create a U-24. I shared that on my channel, U-24. I said he wants to create a U-24 designed around the idea of being able to help countries if they run out of food. Within 24 hours, he can actually deploy food, resources into that country, anywhere in the world in less than 24 hours. So I made a video on this. After his speech of President Zelensky saying this, he also said in his speech that he wants to be able to deploy armies anywhere in the world in less than 24 hours because there could be rogue nations. There could be nations that go out of control, and we don't have enough infrastructure to be able to handle this. Hi, Mary. How's it going? So I made videos about this stuff. Way ahead of its time. Way ahead of its time. Start talking about this. And I also said he's not going to have an election. I said this early. I predicted it like a year before. I said they are in basically martial law. They're under martial law. He has to renew it every 90 days. So end of March, they were supposed to have elections. He canceled it. He says it's not safe to have elections. I also said that if there was going to be a war, it was going to be in regards to the underwater sea cables, which nobody back then, nobody paid attention to that. They're like, yeah, whatever, Shane. You're crazy. You crazy, man. What you talking about? Underwater sea cables. What do you mean 99% of our cables are under the sea? Like 99% of all our internet, all our communications, all our videos, everything has to go under the sea in submarine cables in order to get to Europe and vice versa. People are like, yeah, I don't know if I believe you. Everything goes by satellite. I'm like, no, not true. It's all in the sea cables, the submarine cables. I also mentioned, why do you think Google is buying submarine cable layers, ships that lay cables? Why is Amazon buying a ship? Why is Meta buying a ship? Why don't they just make satellites and put them out into space, out into orbit? People are like, no, I don't believe you, Shane. I don't believe you. I'm like, well, I'm telling you, the next big battle is going to be submarines coming against the cables. It's so easy. All you have to do is submerge a submarine, start cutting cables, and we won't have any idea about outside communication. We won't know what's going on in the world. We won't. So what's interesting is Putin, your friend Putin, is saying now that that could be a strategy that he's willing to use. And we're going to watch a little bit of a news network that's talking about this, which I talked about 2 years ago. I said, watch out. If I was Zelensky and I was a bad guy, I would create the largest sea navy. Is that right? Submarine navy that the world ever witnessed. Why? Because everything is under the sea. Everything important is under the sea. It's not up there. Our data is not in the clouds. It's in hubs, it's in warehouses on the coast, and then it gets spread throughout North America and around the world. But if you cut those cables, you're not going to have any communication. It's so weak. Like, we're so exposed to that kind of stuff. It's actually horrible. You can just send a ship anywhere and start cutting cables. There's not enough of a Navy fleet to be able to patrol the entire ocean. So they just hover around the cables. That's it, to protect it. But we don't know that. We're thinking, oh man, all our data is in the clouds. All our data's in the air somewhere. It's weird, right? All right, so let's go watch this video. And then parked right off the eastern seaboard. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. It's just kind of interesting. And like I said, I try not to watch the news. I only watch the news when I'm right about predictions, if that makes sense. I predicted, or I said, in regards to the Baltimore Bridge, I said if I was in charge of that whole thing, I would treat it as an incident. I would make it an investigation, a criminal investigation, and I would have locked that whole place down day one. I would have not let anybody get out of there. If you belong to the Dally ship, you stay in Baltimore. I want access to all cameras from every angle in Baltimore. I want to know who knew what, when, where, why, and how come. I want to know everything. Now the FBI is getting involved and they're searching the ships. They want to know, this is suspicious. This is suspicious now. Yeah, really? You think after a couple of weeks it's suspicious now? When I told you 2 weeks ago to not let anybody go. Now you're doing a criminal investigation after all the evidence, after they're cutting up the bridge. I said, don't let the welders cut up the bridge. There's 6 construction crew workers that were killed, and nobody is standing up for them. Instead, they're like, oh, well, it could have been the fault of the captain. He could have done something and all this. And then we get police radar, police radio saying that we got this side secure, this side is secure, also, and oh no, the bridge is down. Okay, well, somebody's lying. Somebody's just lying. I'm just calling it. And this is why I make my videos, so that people can come back and watch these videos and go, oh, Shane wasn't so crazy when he's talking about submarine wars. Oh, he's not so crazy about Baltimore. Oh, it's not so crazy about the Titanic. Oh, this week we're going to be talking about CERN on Sunday. So much to talk about. So much to talk about. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying it's nice once in a while when you mention something before the fact. It's easy to say things after things happen. That's when it's easy. You just use hindsight bias. Oh, yeah, I saw this coming. It's hard to say it before it happens because then you get ridiculed beforehand. So when I say Ukraine is going to lead the world when it comes to drone technology, when it comes to AI technology, and then probably in second place will be Israel, and then everyone else after that. People are like, oh no, you're crazy. It's China. It's this and that and this. No, it's Ukraine. Ukraine's going to be in charge of all that stuff. They're going to have, if it was up to Zelensky today, he would dissolve NATO. He would dissolve the UN today because they're not helping him out. He doesn't like them. They're not helping him. They don't have his back. The US doesn't have his back, just like the US doesn't have Israel's back, because that's what happens. There's lots of jockeying, people positioning if it works for them, and then they leave you high and dry. I'm not saying I'm on Zelensky's side or Putin or anything. I'm just saying these players are looking out for their own interests, and it's not our interests. You, the viewer, me, the viewer. It's not my interest. They don't pay attention to anything I say, nor do they care. They openly tell you what they're going to do, and then they go and do it. They have meetings. They tell you what they're going to do, and we just laugh it off. It's weird, right? It's weird. So yeah, so let's go to this footage here. This is from First Post. So let's just check out this footage. Let's see what this person has to say here. Have a look. All right. Let's play it.
Same service. Both companies are the biggest telecom players in India, so Starlink would need to have a competitive strategy. The expansion may prove to be challenging for Musk. He claims Starlink is profitable, but reports say the provider is still losing money and facing challenges in winning lucrative corporate contracts. The Indian market is known to be price sensitive, so finding the right price point would be key to Musk's success.
Our next story combines both of today's earlier topics, war and communication. Looking at the last 2 years, it feels that the world is back to an age of war, almost like the situation before the 1990s, before the end of the Cold War. Think of what we've achieved since then. There have been great technological leaps over the last 3 decades, like the internet. Many of you are watching us online right now in real time from different corners of the world. How do you think that's possible? The internet, yes. But how exactly? The simple answer is underwater cables. Over 95% of the world's data is transmitted under the oceans via giant data cables that crisscross continents. As of last year, there were 552 major seafloor cables, stretching across almost 1.5 million kilometers. You see how they connect every continent on Earth, how they cross all the ocean floors. Well, these cables were laid out during the last 3 decades. They helped connect every corner of the world. But now...
Okay, I don't want to correct everybody. Ahem, ahem. She said this was in the last 2 or 3 decades. It's been since the 1850s that these cables have been laid out, folks. 1850s. It's not 20, 30 years ago. 1850s. Just do the research and you'll find that. But I just had to stop her right there. She said it's been 20, 30 years since we laid cables. Not true. Not true. This is why you come to this channel. You come here for the truth. All right, let's go back. Let's go back.
Now the West thinks that these cables are in danger. A NATO commander has issued a warning. He fears that Russia is planning an attack as part of a new form of what they call undersea hybrid warfare. This warning was issued by Vice Admiral Didier Molitaire. He's the deputy commander of NATO's Allied Maritime Command, also shortened as MARCOM. Now, their commander has issued a warning. He says potential Russian hybrid warfare threatens 1 billion people. It threatens their security, 1 billion people. How did he arrive at this staggering number? He's talking about the population of all NATO countries combined. That's how you get 1 billion. He says they're all at risk, which is a bit of an exaggeration. 1 billion people won't be threatened simultaneously. It's not as though Russia can cut everyone's internet. And even if it somehow manages to, It's not like 1 billion people will die or NATO will be crippled. Yes, their information flow could slow down, or they may have to turn to the alternative, which is satellite internet, like Starlink. So,
which is not true, but I'll come back to that.
so far, satellites only transmit about 3% of the world's data, but Western militaries could always turn to it if needed. So the threat to communication seems a bit overblown. Now let's look at the undersea cables again. See how they circle the globe. I mentioned that there are 552 of them. Multiple cables also connect the same countries. So there are redundancies. It would take a massive coordinated attack to cut all of the cables. It's not something that can be done in secret or in one fell swoop. So don't worry, your evening video streaming session will be safe. An attack might slow down the internet, but it won't stop it. Then why is NATO so nervous? Because it speaks to a larger point: complacency on the security front. A lot of our current undersea infrastructure is vulnerable. It was not designed to resist bombs. And it's not just internet cables. We also have other infrastructure under the sea, like oil and gas pipelines. Remember the Nord Stream blasts? The pipelines were blown up in 2022. They connected Russia to Germany. They allowed Russia to send natural gas, directly to Western Europe. They ran under the Baltic Sea. So Europe got cheap Russian gas and Russia made billions of dollars. It was a win-win until the war in Ukraine, because then Russia turned the taps off. It put Europe in a tough spot. But even as they were trying to wean away from the gas, the pipelines were destroyed. It was a blow, not devastating though. Europe found a way to survive, but it did suffer losses. And NATO wants to avoid that in the future, which is why they're talking about undersea infrastructure. It's a pragmatic move, especially as wars seem to be on the rise, but it's not some end-of-the-world scenario. So maybe NATO should avoid unnecessary fear-mongering and throwing around big numbers like 1 billion people being threatened.
All right. Let's talk about this here. I think NATO, for the first time, is not underestimating. I think it could affect 1 billion people, and I think it could be done in secret. Why do you think they have submarines? It's so you can't see them coming. We haven't even talked about the oil pipelines, all this kind of stuff. But our weakest link right now, today, our weakest link is the undersea cables. That's our weakest link. So I think to counter any threats, obviously you need the Navy running 24 hours a day, monitoring the seabed, because all it would take is to cut these cables, because they're not easy to fix. That's the point. Yes, you may not be able to cut everything, every single cable, but you could do enough damage to cause a bit of a distraction. And what are you going to do? You're going to start sending your Navy over to that side when the other side is being cut as well by someone else? I'm telling you, we're vulnerable. We're vulnerable right now. And that's the point. And I said this 2 years ago. I said I could see a sea battle that is beyond your imagination. And where did I get this from? I got it from the book of Revelation. We notice that there is basically 1/3 of the ships get destroyed. And I used to wonder about that. I'm like, 1/3 of the ships? What's the big deal? Like, why ships? Now I know why. It's because all of our technology is embedded into these cables. All our data flows back and forth. It's not just video. It's not just radios. We're actually backing up our information through these cables, and we're storing them in these hubs. So if you cut those cables, what do you think they're after? You think they're just going to cut the cable and that's it? No, that's how you hack the internet underwater. You don't go to some government building and you get inside like Mission Impossible. You get lowered by a cable like Tom Cruise style and you start hacking. No, you go to the cables, the undersea cables The submarine cables, you cut those open. That's how you hack. That's how you steal data. That's how you collect data. And it's almost impossible to stop. It's almost too late. It's almost too late. So yeah, so it's interesting that this lady said that NATO's up to it again. They're a billion people. You're not going to cut all the cables. I think she's thinking people are using scissors cutting all the cables and stuff. It doesn't take very much to damage a cable. And what now you're gonna send Amazon a ship. You're gonna send Meta. You're gonna send Google one of their ships out there. Do you know how long it takes to replace a cable and start fixing it and all this kind of stuff? It's not easy. It's not easy. People are underestimating it. There was an island, maybe somebody knows this in the comments. There was an island right out of the gate. I want to say Tonga or something like that. Was it off one of the Hawaiian Islands last year? I think it was. Maybe it was 2 years ago. But basically, there was a tsunami or an earthquake, and basically the tectonic plates shifted a little bit, and the whole island was cut off from civilization. Nobody could use their cell phones off the island to get to them, and nobody on the island could reach out to say, hey, we're in trouble here. So they lost power until they fixed those cables. That tells you how helpless we are. Does anybody know what offhand? Do I have to do the digging? I think it was Tonga. I don't know why that popped into my head. But again, all you would need is a natural disaster or some kind of a strike in a certain area that's weak, and you could take out those cables. You don't need a submarine. You just put them on a fault line. Madrid fault line. You put it somewhere along the California, what's that fault line on the West Coast? You just have to detonate a certain area, and all you would do is you just need the tectonic plates to shift, and they'll slice all the cables off at once. One shot, all cables. It's possible. And I think that's what's going to happen down the road. I don't know. Could be this year. There's one video I made last year. When was it? It was like just before there was an earthquake. Obviously, it seems like there's earthquakes everywhere, every day. It's crazy, right? So it's not hard to predict earthquakes. But I still think we're waiting for a big one to happen. A big earthquake that's going to shift things around a bit. Because when you read the book of Revelation, you come across verses or actually Matthew 24, where basically people that are looking into these things have heart attacks. They faint. They pass out. Why? Because they can't figure out what's going on. They can't figure out why there's earthquakes in diverse places, meaning places that you would never expect to have an earthquake. They don't know why stars are falling. They're like, this doesn't make any sense. They get all confused. They're like, there's floods happening all over the place. And the scientists are like, popping aspirin like it's going out of style. Why? Because they can't figure it out with their instruments. And the Bible's true. We just don't always know the timing of things. So when the Bible talks about a third of ships being destroyed, I could see it happening. I could see a huge naval battle. It's so important. Fighter jets don't help you with internet technology. They don't. Battleships will. Destroyers will. Submarines will. Because then you don't have to worry about getting attacked, because you can still see via TV, radio, all that stuff. But if you cut that at sea, we're not going to know what's going on around us. Our cell phones will start flashing SOS, and we're like, well, I really should have memorized a map in order to drive around, because now I'm so used to GPS, I don't even know how to get downtown. I wish I had done that. I wish I wasn't so dependent on my phone or my electric vehicle for GPS. And one little tiny EMP strike, and all of a sudden we're helpless. Like when I was a child, Mom, if you're watching this, you probably shouldn't listen to this, but I used to leave the house, and me and some friends and I, we would actually take off into the woods, and we would try and get lost. We would run as far as we could into the woods, and then we'd end up hitting a cut line or something, and then we're like, oh, okay, if we go this way, that go, okay. And before you know it, we're back home again. You couldn't get lost. Now, for me, man, if I drive downtown, I'm like, which street was it? Where did my daughter live again? Where's my GPS? That's how bad it gets. We're so used to looking at our technology and going, oh, where was that Bible verse again? Oh, yeah, here, let me scroll. Like, it's not in here. You shut this down tomorrow, and a huge percentage, including myself, is going to be helpless. We're weak because we spend so much time watching Friends. I know some of you are upset right now that I mentioned Friends. And you're probably thinking of your favorite scenes right now in Friends. But if you know Friends more than you know the Bible, I think you're in trouble. And believe me, I've watched Friends. I haven't seen all the episodes. I think there's like 10 seasons, 20 seasons or something. I don't know how long it would take you to binge watch that, but my point is, when times get tough, we go to Friends. We watch Friends instead of going to our scripture and reading the Bible and trying to memorize it and study it and read it and read it and read it. Then you can go watch the news, because then you could literally be like this. Every time they have a news sequence, you can be like, oh yeah, that's right here. Oh yeah, that's in Revelation. Oh yeah, that's right here. Huh, that's interesting. It's all there. It's all in my Bible. That's what happens when you read the Bible over and over. But conversely, if you're just watching the news and it's causing you to not sleep, and instead you leave the Bible alone, I've said this before. If you have a dusty Bible, you're going to have a dirty life. It's inevitable. Why? Because that's what happened to me. I wasn't reading my Bible, and I had no idea. I just let the flesh just take over. And my son came up to me one day and blew the dust off of my Bible and said, Dad, here, you should read this once in a while. And so I began reading it after my wife prayed for me for 90 days in a row, asking God to give me a hunger for his word. And I thank God for that. That was 2 years ago my wife did that. And when Russia invaded Ukraine, I decided to create a YouTube channel. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to document my journey. And this feels like we're kind of in the end times a little bit. So why don't I start reading the book of Revelation and then reading the book of Romans? And in the last 2 years, I've read the entire Bible 12 times. So now I have a lot of that in my head. So when I watch news or I'm having a conversation with someone, I have a whole Rolodex of verses popping through my head, piecing things together. It's interesting, right? Yep, exactly. 8th trip through Romans. Awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, I just finished Exodus this morning. So now I'm into Leviticus, which is one of my favorite books. And I'll probably do a deep dive, pardon the pun, deep dive, since we're talking about submarines and ships. But the way I look at Leviticus is basically in three categories: a church, a hospital, and a bank. If you have Leviticus, you'll understand how all that stuff works. It's quite fascinating when you think about it. Quite fascinating. So, anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit about that news article that we just watched, because I could see this coming down the pipes. I could see this is, to me, if I was Russia, if I not the Russians, not the people, but if I was Putin, if I was the military leaders, I would be all over the submarine cables. Why? Because everybody's looking in Israel right now. Everybody's distracted, and Israel has its problems right now. Severe problems with Iran, with all the areas around there. Like, they are vulnerable as well. And if the US is distracted, that's the perfect time, because there's this little book here. This is kind of an interesting book. I read it every once in a while, called The Art of War. If they read this book, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. Because Sun Tzu, basically, one of his quotes is basically, you don't even go to war unless you know you're going to win. You lay out all your strategy, your stratagem, if you will. And Jesus even talks about this. He says, like, you got to count the cost first. Like, a wise man will lay everything out and then go, should we attack or not? And if we're not going to win, we need to make peace. We need to offer delegation. We got to send a delegation out to make peace, or we got to retreat. So in the art of war, if you apply that today, you pretend that you're weak, so that if somebody comes against you, you're actually stronger than they think. Or if you're weak, you act like you're strong, and you say, we will come after you with such superior power, and we'll just hammer you and you won't even know. Like, you have to say that because you're weak. The opposite of that is you're weak and you pretend that you're strong and you pretend that you're weak. And if they're too powerful, you find another angle. You find out a place where they're weak, and you don't attack unless you think you can win. If you don't think you're going to win, and you think it's going to cost your troops a lot of time and energy, and you have to feed them over a period of a year, 2 years, you have to think that far into the future. If you think you can last that long and you think you can win in 2 years, then you go ahead, you go full steam ahead. But if you think, I only have enough resources for this war to be 3 months and we may not win, then you don't do it. You only attack if you know you're going to be 100% successful. That's according to the art of war. So if there's a little attack on these submarine cables, there's a reason for it. They think that they can do enough damage. Something to think about. But we're vulnerable right now. That's the part that I don't like. We're very vulnerable. We're too reliant on technology to get us out of a jam. We're too reliant on it. And if those fail, I don't know. It's crazy, right? Shane hates... Okay, so now I hate Jews? It's kind of weird. Somebody's spreading comments, so look at that, all over the place. Wow, crazy, right? Yeah, no, I do not. It's just interesting that if you have a comment and you are a believer in Christ, people will come after you for having an opinion. I'm saying, like, you should be praying for Israel. I'm saying they're vulnerable as well because everybody's coming after them. And the U.S. sometimes is pretending that they're supporting them. Biden says one thing and then does something else. It's weird, right? So yeah. So I'll probably block whoever is saying that. It's kind of weird that people come on to another person's channel and then say that you hate people. Who was that anyway? Are they gone? Did they remove their stuff? Where'd they go? I just saw it. Yeah, right here. Whoever this is. I feel like Shimonian. Ban and delete their comments. Goodbye. Anyone else? This person here. Ban. See ya. Who else? Anyone else saying weird things? Yeah. Yeah, it's weird, right? Because people all of a sudden, yeah, there's another one here. I don't know if that's bots or what is that. It's like now I got to block people from saying that I hate Jews and all this kind of stuff. I can't even mention the other words that they're saying. Like, it's weird, right? They just come on here and they start saying stuff like this. And you would think that YouTube would be able to screen that stuff as well and say, oh yeah, no, we don't allow that. But instead, YouTube has its own little things where if you say anything about the medical industry or anything, it's like all of a sudden you get squeezed. But people can come on a person's channel and say you hate this person, you're this person that hates this race or whatever it is. And it's just weird, right? It's crazy, right? Yeah, I need a mod, I think. I had no idea that people just jump on like that and start saying stuff like all caps. It's like, well, now you're standing out as well. So yeah, it's easy. I just blocked them, deleted them. But anyways, that's also what happens when you have an opinion and you think outside the box. People will come after you. They'll email you. They'll send you messages on your email and they'll be like, yeah, you know what? I can't believe you said this or that and whatever. And I don't like you, whatever it is. It's just weird, right? It's like people actually take their time to send email messages. And it's like, dude, like, do you know how fast I can hit delete? Like, I don't have to read your message, but there'll be pages and pages. And I'm like, okay, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. Anyways. Yeah, and basically, the reason why I mentioned that about Zelensky is I'm not saying anything that he hasn't said. But you just have to watch some of his videos where he says, hey, look, guys, it's not efficient right now. We need a policing mechanism that is better than the UN, that's better than NATO. Something that can operate in less than 24 hours. Just look it up. And then we can get food to countries that need it. It's not a bad idea. But when you tap into the idea that if a nation doesn't go along with you, you can actually send forces into that country within 24 hours, then that becomes terrifying now. So you can't have, it's almost like you can't have one without the other. So this is Zelensky saying this. He called it U-24, United 24. Within 24 hours, he could send resources. He doesn't have that right now, but that's what he wants to set up one day in the future. And he asked us for like $650 million with no receipts. So, I don't know. You got to hand it to him sometimes. You know, like he is everywhere selling for his country. The only problem is they don't have total freedom like we think they have, and probably we don't either, although we're not under martial law. They are right now. It's interesting though, right? But we could be there too. We could be there like in a day, 2 days. We could be under that same thing where Trudeau all of a sudden says something and it's like, we have an emergency situation off the coast. We detected some subs that are going after some of our internet infrastructure, so we have to declare martial law. And don't think the United States couldn't do that in the fall leading up to the election. I've predicted that since probably a couple months ago, saying you guys aren't going to have an election in November for the first time in a long time. That's my prediction. Because I want you guys to come back here and go, oh, yeah, I remember when he said that. Remember when he said that? There was no election this year. Remember when he said that? Because right now you could make fun and you can go, that's horrible. That's crazy. There's no way, blah, 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 blah. Because in order to make predictions, you have to make a prediction before it happens. There's too many people that make predictions after, but that's not a prediction. That's just looking at all the data and going, oh yeah, this could have been prevented. And I'm telling you ahead of time what to do to prevent it. But when it gets prevented, then people just kind of disappear, like myself, where it's like you just go off into the distant where there's all these voices and stuff because somebody listened, corrected it, and then now it's like, hey, what you said didn't come true. Well, maybe they fixed it. I've been saying for the past 2 years that we're vulnerable to a sea attack because of the internet cables, the submarine cables. And I still believe we're vulnerable. So the only way to fix that is to most likely increase your Navy presence. But it's very difficult. The sea is pretty big. It's crazy, right? If you haven't figured out how to love without buying or selling, you'll take the mark. Yeah, that's a tough thing too, right? Because I think we're all in that scenario where, man, I'm already starting to get hungry. And I had breakfast a couple of hours ago. You put a cheeseburger in front of me and you say like, hey, tell me where all these people are hiding. I'll be like singing like a canary with my cheeseburger in front of me. I love McDonald's, man. I'm weak when it comes to McDonald's and A&W and Burger King and Dairy Queen and Wendy's. That's a weakness for me. I think if I was being tortured, I'd probably last about 10 minutes because all they would have to do is take their phone and say, look, I'm punching 3101010, and that's Pizza Hut. If I push that last button, you can have pizza, or you need to sing like a canary. Tell me where everybody is. Tell me all the passwords. Tell me everything. Okay, I get free pizza if I tell you. Okay, that's how weak I am. And I think there's a lot of people like that will rat their neighbors out for a morsel of food, a morsel of bread. It's crazy, right? All will take the mark. Yeah, you can pose a case for like once the church is out of here, it's going to be very difficult. I don't think everyone will take the mark because there's going to be rogue nations that will not follow the Antichrist. And the Antichrist does go through some battles where he actually loses, but he goes home and then comes back again, and he's even stronger. Just have to read that in Daniel. But there will be countries that will not fall in line with whatever the Antichrist wants to do. They will refuse the mark, but they'll be off the grid. Be those people. Don't know who that is, but yeah, so it's kind of interesting, right? Yeah, so at least 144,000 we know will be sealed. But beyond that, we don't know the numbers. We don't know which countries will avoid the beast like the plague. It's interesting, right? Interesting. Let's see. Anyone else got something to share? What else we got here? Yeah, angels flying through the air warning humanity to not take. Yeah, it's interesting, right? That tells you something too. I think if us Christians were here and we didn't get raptured, we would be ratting out the Antichrist every single day. There he is. There he is. There he is. There he is. That's why I think when we're gone, it's going to be tough times for people that don't know Jesus Christ, because there won't be people in the church. At least I guess there would be people in the church that don't know the Lord, but that would be a weird place to go if you don't know about Jesus Christ. Like, there are churches that probably preach some other message. I think of Oprah. She says she believes in God. So do the devils. They believe in God and shudder. So I think it has to eventually be more than just believing that there is a God. So yeah, that's why I make these videos, just to put them out there so that people can come back later and watch them and go, oh yeah, you know what? He was either kooky or he was right or he was onto something. And that's the risk you take for trying to predict the future. Like, it's hard, right? Because if you're wrong, you just disappear into the basically the expanse of everybody else that's wrong. But if you're right, sometimes it's kind of too late. You don't want to be right either. You don't want to be right. And you don't want to be that Chicken Little character as well, where you're always crying Chicken Little, like the sky is falling, the sky is falling. But sometimes you need to say things and document it so that people can come back and go, oh yeah, here's how we can fix this. Here's how we can correct the course, because otherwise you just go right off a cliff. It's interesting, right? It's crazy, right? Speaking of going off of a cliff, when I grew up, I used to remember, what's the name of those creatures? Lemmings? I remember lemmings, where we were always told, hey, don't be like a lemming, because if you go with the flow, you're going to go over the cliff like a lemming. Well, it turns out that's not true either, because lemmings don't do that. God didn't put an instinct in animals like that to commit mass suicide. What actually happened was there was actually a documentary on the making of, I think it was Wild Disney or Wild World or something. And what the crew was doing was they actually had plywood, and they would hold these big sheets of plywood, and they would go to the edge of the cliff, and the lemmings would try and turn around into the plywood and then go, oh, there's nowhere else for us to go. And then they would run away from the plywood, and the camera crew would not film the guys holding the plywood, but would film the lemmings going over the cliff. And because the lemmings wouldn't jump very far, they would grab handfuls of lemmings and chuck them themselves and then film these lemmings dropping into the water. That's Disney doing that back in the 70s. And that documentary, I think, won an award for best documentary or something. And so we were believing a lie for a long time, going, oh yeah, that's what lemmings do every year, is they just go on a massive suicide mission. They all go over the cliff. It's not true. It's not what they do. They were forced by the camera crew to go over the cliff. It's horrible, right? They're supposed to be treating animals nice. And you get people that are actually doing this on purpose to twist things. It's crazy, right? Yeah, it's ministry. What are we talking about here? Let's see. I'm just reading the comments now. When did Jesus know he was God? I think Jesus knew he was God before the foundation of the world. I'm pretty sure he knew that he was God, because he was never created. He was never created. He even hints at that when he had his ministry. He said, before Abraham was, I am. Interesting, right? Interesting. So yeah, and it's interesting that we get the book of Revelation now, where Jesus basically is telling us what's going to happen in the future. Right? So people say, oh, Jesus doesn't know. He doesn't know. Well, we have a book. It's called the book of Revelation, dictated by Jesus Christ to John as to what's going to happen and how the world ends. The Millennium Kingdom, New Jerusalem coming down, everything. It's all in. If you want to know how we win, flip to the end of your Bible. It's pretty cool. we win. Let's see here. What else? Dun, 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 dun. Anything else before I wrap this up? Antichrist won't be revealed till the church is gone. Thanks for answering. No, not tonight. They have a couple of guests tonight. So Greg, he let me know yesterday. He said not this week, but maybe next week. I think I was kind of like almost like on standby in case somebody couldn't make it or whatever. Like I'm not officially part of Uptime, but I've just been on there a lot because I love the guys and I have fun talking with them, and they're just a great bunch of guys. Like I've got to meet so many other people because of that, because of being on there. So I just basically, I think I just have like an open door policy with them that goes both ways. They're welcome on my channel anytime, and I'm welcome on their channel anytime. I think they want to get away from the 20 panelists on their channel because it's very hard. I tried that I think it was last week, and to have like 8 people on there, it's very difficult to monitor all that. So I think they're trying to go down to like maybe 5 or 6 people kind of thing. So, but I'll most likely be watching a little bit of it tonight because we're actually going to my daughter's house tonight to babysit, and I'll be watching a little bit. I like watching other people's channels at night. So this is why I don't always go live every single day, is because I like watching other people's stuff. I like that better than cable. I like watching other Watchmen channels. I don't know. I find that interesting in itself because obviously you can catch up on things, especially because I have a network of friends that have YouTube channels. So I try to comment on their channels and let them know that I support them, whatever, if they have a video that's live or whatever. I spend a lot of my time doing that as well. And I don't have time to watch other stuff because I'm watching other people's channels. Let's see. My spirit is heavy. Yeah. And what's interesting, let's see here. So glad I caught you. Yeah. Like I just randomly decided to go on live stream. I got to do some other stuff right after I'm done here. And then I got to take off to Calgary in a few hours. But I thought, it's a good time to come on, do a little live stream, talk about submarine battles that could be coming your way pretty soon. This weekend, this Sunday, I'm going to be talking about CERN. So usually what I do, this is kind of a little bit of inside information. What I like to do is if I have a topic that I'm going to talk about, I'll usually read a book or two on the topic, and then I might watch a documentary or something about that topic, and then I can form my opinion and at least have an intelligent conversation about whatever video that I'm making. So that's what I did with the Titanic. I didn't just watch the Titanic by James Cameron, but I actually read a book, and then I read a few articles, and then I watched a couple of documentaries, basically showcasing both sides of the story. And then I formed my opinion, and I'll be doing the same thing for CERN as well. I have some books that I'm interested in reading. Problem is it's Tuesday, and sometimes some of these books take a little while to read. So there's a couple that I want to read before Sunday. But just so you know, that's kind of what I do. So some people just go to the internet and read articles. I actually read books in order to do the research for whatever it is I'm talking about. So just kind of interesting. Maybe it's because I read a little bit faster now. I used to be really slow, but I can usually knock off a book in an evening if I put my mind to it. In like, let's say 3 to 6 hours, the book is gone, done. And then if I can remember the information, that would be even better, right? So anyways, I'm going to get something to eat as well. A little bit hungry. Anything else coming down the pipes? Anything else that I should talk about? in future videos. Like maybe I'll make a video. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Tuesday. Today's Tuesday. Tomorrow's Wednesday. So maybe I'll make a video tomorrow sometime. Attack on me on purpose for being here and my ability to what? What's going on? I forgive you for attack on my purpose for being here, my ability to recall Bible scripture. Oh, okay. Caps. All right. So I guess some people are having a little bit of an argument back and forth. Hey, whatever floats your fancy. That's fine. So I am going to end the stream. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. If there is something that you want me, like if there's an article you'd like me to read before make my video on Sunday, here's my email address. Or if there's a video that you think I should watch before I make a certain video Sunday night with the round table, just email me and say, hey, here's a YouTube channel where these guys talk about this or whatever it is. Or here's an article that you should read. Send it there. And then that'll help me with my research as well. All right. All right. All right. All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Drink some water and get some rest. For sure. Thanks for that, Raven Vehement. Thank you. I will drink some water. Thank you for that. All right. See you guys later. Talk to you at least in a few days. See you later. Bye.